What's up, guys?
What's happening?
Welcome back to Boost Brothers Garage.
Today is a big day.
We are continuing disassembly of the Cayman engine, and hopefully we'll get the heads off.
Some other big news. If you look behind me on the floor, anybody know what that is?
I do. That is a Titan 6,000 pound mid-rise scissor lift. Our buddy Thomas just went and picked this thing up, and luckily, because he's a good friend, and B,
The bestest of friends.
maybe the best, because he does stuff like this, and B, our shopmate, that means that we're going to get to use it as well. Not today, because we're just doing engine stuff, but we figured you'd see it back there and wonder what the hell was going on. That's what's going on.
Also, if you see behind me, right there, that is Thomas's Cayman, and it has a broken fuel pump. So shortly we will be filming a video on how to replace the fuel pump on a Cayman. Stay tuned for that.
One of the things we've been waiting for in order to do this is this Porsche specialty tool. So basically we have a camshaft locking device, and then we also have this pin which allows us to lock the engine in top dead center. And that's the first thing we're gonna do, is find and lock the engine in TDC.
Dogs.
The bums.
Yo, dogs. There you go.
Good boy.
Hopefully a cat doesn't run by. He read a manual and now he thinks he knows how to do this. I really hope he does.
All right, so that's an easy enough job. There's a teardrop shaped hole in the crank pulley, and there's a boss that sticks out of the block. You line those two up, shove the pin in, and you're at top dead center for either number 1 cylinder or number 4 cylinder. A few of you guys were nice enough to send us copies of the Cayman shop manual, which has been a huge help at this point.
Thank you.
Thank you. We're following those instructions in doing this. Getting the motor to TDC is easy, but like I said, you're either going to be TDC for number 1 or number 4. Now, the manual made it look like there were some scribe marks or indentions or something on the end of the camshaft to show you which bank was at TDC. I'm having trouble finding that. What I can tell you is that these cam lobes are pointing up, which means these valves are closed. So we're gonna work on this bank first. Next thing we're gonna do is figure out how to use this fancy device. And then we're gonna pull the timing chain tensioner and then pull the sprocket off one of the cams to drop the chain down, and then we can pull the camshafts. First, I gotta figure this out. Good news, bad news. I read the shop manual in regards to where we're at right here and using this tool, because as I was putting this tool on over here, it doesn't line up with the other camshaft sprocket, so it's not like it's locking the two together. So when I started reading more about it, what this actually does is when the valve cover is still on, this slides in and rests against the inside of the valve cover and locks the cam that way. So I don't even fully understand why it's necessary, but I know that we don't need to use it right now. Hopefully we do need it when we reassemble the engine or something, but if someone can tell me why that's even in the workshop manual and what it's used for, I'd appreciate it, because I don't get it. But what I do know is that from here we can pull the chain tensioner out, we can remove the 4 screws from the cam sprocket, we can pull it off, drop the chain, pull the camshafts, and then pull the head. I just did some more reading and I figured out specifically what that tool is for. It is...
Hopefully the internet's right. Speed Academy says they're wrong a lot.
It is apparently to help keep the camshaft in place when you remove the valve cover, because the valve cover is the bearing guide for the backside of the camshafts. So supposedly there can be enough force from the valve springs to actually break the camshafts if you don't hold them perfectly in place. I guess we got lucky by not using the proper tools when we took the valve covers off. So for those of you guys watching and learn from our mistake. Luckily not an expensive mistake, but make sure you use those tools when you're starting disassembly of the heads. We got lucky. We're going to keep moving on and hope that we continue to stay lucky. Next thing the manual says to do is to pull these 4 screws out of this camshaft sprocket. And this is before you loosen the tension. It says remove the screws, but do not remove the sprocket. This is one area that is going to be much more difficult for us because we still don't have the adapter to put this thing on the engine stand. But the tensioner for this bank is down here. So I need to get it out, and if I can't get it all the way out, which I probably won't, we'll have to prop this side of the engine up a little bit. You'll see when I let this drop all the way that this chain will drop as well. So that's where your cam chain, timing chain, tension comes from. So we got that out. We're loose here. I'm gonna pull this the rest of the way out, and then we can get back up to working on the sprockets, pull those off, and then we can take the cams out from there. I don't know how necessary it is, but I'm gonna go ahead and mark the location of the cam sprockets right now, where TDC is, just so we have some sort of reference point when we go to put it back together. Onward. Pull your sprocket, maybe. Probably gonna take a little bit of work there. There we go. And now we can pull this cam out. You'll obviously want to mark the caps as they come off and bolts. This cam is completely undone and out. Progress. We've gone through and put the sprocket back on the camshaft in its original position. We also marked that it's the passenger exhaust cam, and we threw a towel around it to protect it while it's in storage. The next thing we're gonna do is start pulling out these lifters one by one, and you wanna make sure that you mark the position of every single lifter because you want it to go back in its original spot so that it mates up with the cam lobe that it's always been with. We're marking the lifters by putting a little piece of tape around them and putting passenger exhaust 1, 2, 3, 4.
All passengers going to be red tape.
All driver will be blue tape.
Yep.
Yep. So we'll go ahead and do all that, and then we're going to jump on to the intake cam. We got all that knocked out, and we are removing the intake cam. Intake cam's out. Do the same with the lifters, and then we'll start unbolting the head. While we were at it, after we got the cams out, we went ahead and pulled these solenoids out. So we're going to mark those. They were there and there. And I'm also pulling out the lifter girdle here. I've got all but 2 bolts off, and you have to do this to be able to get to all the head bolts. So that should pop out now with some persuasion. Potentially. Make sure I got all the bolts.
There's one right there.
Where? Right there?
Yeah.
Let's try that again. A little more persuasion, and we got it off. Those are some tiny little valve springs. We've got the cams, lifters, lifter girdle, everything out of the inside of the head that we need to at this point. So we're going to start pulling the head bolts so that we can get the head out. There are 3 small screws outside of the head down on this edge over here and then one under. I've already pulled those, and then the rest are inside here, and they're all Torx, and they are a T55. So we've got our T55 impact socket. We're gonna see if this will break them loose. Not real confident they will, but if not, we'll just grab a ratchet. Whoa, look at that. So we got a lot of those to pull. We'll do that real quick and we'll be right back. All the bolts are out. We're gonna see if we can't pop this thing off now. Separating over here, but it hasn't started separating over here yet. Just want to make sure I'm not missing any bolts or anything. Found one more bolt hiding under the timing chain guide. So we've got to pull that real quick, and then hopefully she'll be free. Got these two bolts that go in from the back side of the head and block, and then it pulls out. You can see our last bolt hiding right down there. Looks like it's free. Oh, and luckily, it's pretty light. Head's off. Looked at the underside of the head, the valves, everything looked good. Thus far, we don't see anything too obvious. None of the infamous D-chunks on any of these cylinders. We haven't rotated the engine to drop that one down to see if we see anything, but from what I've read and heard, typically when they talk about cylinder scoring, the scoring's down at the bottom of the bore, and you can't see it from the top side with the pistons in anyway. So we're just gonna do the other side. You guys have seen what it takes to do this. We're not gonna show you the other side, we're just gonna do it, and then we'll film once again when we have it off, show you what we find. You guys remember how I said we were just gonna pull this head off real quick and then we'd show you the end result? Well, that didn't happen because the timing chain tensioner on this side is a massive, massive Allen bit bolt, whatever you want to call it, and we don't have one. So once again, we got to go get some tools. Unfortunately, we are out of time today, so we're going to call it quits here.
Why are we out of time?
Because we're going to go day drinking. So, you know, I mean, we could.
Sunday fun day, guys.
Right. I haven't had a Sunday fun day in a long time. I'm really looking forward to it. But anyway, we'll be back on this shortly, and man, we're getting real close to being able to tear apart the short block, and that is exciting and frightening at the same time.
Pray for
us.
All right, guys, thanks for watching this episode.
See you next time.
See ya.